Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. It's Adila and Ben. Today we have a special episode, a bit of a mix and mash from all our other episodes previously, and it's a compilation of all the guests we've had on the show so far answering the question, what does education mean to you? Ben and I had to go answering these questions right at the very start of the podcast, and I think it's been really interesting to hear what some of our guests have had to say. It'll be a good prompt as well for you, our listener, to think about what education means to you. Enjoy. So I guess that brings us to a point where we could ask each other and I guess our listeners as well to reflect on this. But what does education mean to you, Ben?
That's quite a tricky question. I mean, I guess that's what this episode is all about, though. I guess it's going to sound a bit philosophical, but I think that education does not end the classroom. It's merely the beginning.
I feel like you just Googled that. Like you just typed that in and that was what came up.
Oh, I wish. Let me just have a No, I think that education encompasses many aspects of life. I mean, when you're young, you start going to school, you learn in the classroom, and then for many of us, you probably think, no, that's when you switch off, you go home, you do your homework, and then you relax for the evening. But realistically, you're surrounded by your family, you're learning, you're picking up behavioral traits, you're learning off them, even if you don't realize it. And then, well, also with like sports and things, you're learning how to play, perform, you're learning that hand-eye coordination. And even with your hobbies as well, I mean, they may be two of the same, but how did that all begin? How did you start your hobby? I'm sure you just didn't pick it up and were as good as you are now.
I love it. I feel like you really put a lot of thought into it and you've really highlighted the outside the classroom stuff very well, which is a great perspective that not a lot of people think about. But I'd say that I agree with your answer that knowledge is not just confined to a classroom. Education is like a lifelong thing. Like you're constantly learning, you're constantly improving. And as cliche as it sounds, knowledge is power. Like especially now more than ever in this ever-changing sort of world, it's important to learn and pass on that knowledge to others as well. And I think being researchers, it's kind of part of what we do. Research and put our findings out there for the public to see.
Definitely.
Great.
Working together, forever pushing the boundaries of what is known and working on new problems, new issues that tackle us today.
Yeah. Next, we're going to hear from Bianca. He is a doctor and he's also very interested in research. We're going to hear what education means to him after being in the education system for many years.
Looking back though, it's been quite a journey to get you to where you are now. What does education mean to you? I mean, you've
been through it all, yeah.
Oh, don't think I've been through it all.
Being a doctor is like continual lifelong learning as well. Like it doesn't really stop, does it?
Yeah. Well, I think education's pretty much all of you guys would agree is super important. It's almost like a basic need. I think that everyone should have access to, and unfortunately, that's not true. But it should be. And I think education provides a base level of background to people so that they are able to, progress later on in life, and gives them the opportunities to, work in areas that they're interested in, to discover things to help humankind all over the world, and to really progress us and help people all around the world, to either live longer, live better. I think education's it's such a big question to ask, but hopefully that sums it up a little bit.
Yeah, as you were saying your answer, I was thinking about, in this remote part of the world where they have no access to schools, education, internet, there are young children and, girls and boys who maybe have such bright ideas, but they were never given the opportunity to explore that and dig into that
100%.
Potential.
Definitely. How many wasted ideas have suffered because of inaccessibility to information and technology?
Crazy.
I mean, I think that the
There's still a
internet has
long
really
way to
opened it
go.
up for it. A lot of people making apps.
I'm sure there's not a lot of
contributing to
places
research.
with no internet, right?
Yeah, I think just really remote places probably wouldn't still have internet. But your story just reminded me of something, which is there's a famous mathematician who grew up in India. His name was, I think, Ramanandran or Ramachandran or
Was it
something like that.
mathematician?
Yeah, mathematician.
Mhm.
And
That rings
so
a bell, okay.
yeah, so it was
Yeah.
about 100, like I think it was born like 100 years ago or something like that. And he had no formal schooling, as far as I'm aware, and he taught himself mathematics. He actually solved theorems that no one else in the world could solve.
Really?
And then he became the first professor of mathematics at Oxford, I think. And then he died very early. I think it was from like tuberculosis or something. He died only at the age of like 30 or something. People are still looking through his journals, trying to find out things that he figured out, because all of them are coming true. Like all of them have been proven right slowly. Just recently, like a few years ago, they found like a few extra pages of things, and they found a whole new theorem that no one had ever thought of.
What a
He had
legacy.
100%, and he had no formal, education. Imagine all these other people that, maybe with just a little bit of education, they could
You never
they could
know
they could
what the
find all these
potential
things out.
is.
Next, we have Nat, who is a research scientist and has been involved in supervising many PhD, masters, and also honours students. Cool. So, Nat, we'll start off with an introductory question, which we've actually asked most of the guests that have come through our show. Slightly tricky. We struggled with it in the beginning as well. What does education mean to you?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on the show. Big fan, obviously. Yeah, that is a tough question. I'm not sure it's something you can answer easily. I certainly don't think you can condense it down to a degree or a period of study. I think education is something that's an ongoing process forever in all its forms. So it's basically constantly challenging yourself to learn and try new things, to me.
Oh, I really
That
like
sounds
that.
good, yeah.
I like that you mentioned it's not just the degree, because, when you think education, you think maybe school, uni, TAFE, but like you're learning outside of that environment as well.
It's like your hobbies and
How to be a good person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also that even if you learn something in a degree, it's got applications to other things outside that subject matter as well. So, what you learn in a PhD isn't just about the subject of your PhD, it's skills that you can use for other things in life as well. So,
Hopefully so.
yes, it is.
Now we'll hear from Tom, a PhD student finishing up his PhD in anthropology, looking at students at schools with dyslexia.
Well, I think education is really important to, get just a better understanding of the world around you, also to kind of expand your opportunities for what you can do in the future too, because a lot of people aren't provided with a good education or don't have the opportunity to, learn those vital things in school and feel good about themselves and their schoolwork. So, yeah, I think education is really important. This is for a society, for everyone to get an education, have equal opportunities in their education too, and to learn those vital things as well as just expand their learning. And not think about it just as, with higher education too, as a way of getting money or linking it to employment straight away too. Like, we've got to learn about these interesting things like linguistics, history units. Don't just get rid of them because they're not making enough money. They're not linked to industry as much. So, yeah, not an instrumental approach to education. Yeah.
Interesting.
yeah, sounds like the right way to do it.
I really like what you said about equal opportunity and, expanding your learning.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm generally quite a curious person. There's so many things I want to know, but it's just I don't have time to go and look into every nook and cranny.
Yeah.
So, which is why I've kind of enjoyed doing the podcast and getting to meet people like yourself and others, where we can learn through them and hear their perspectives as well. So, I mean, in a way, this podcast is also a part of my education as well. So, interesting. Would you agree, Ben?
Yeah, definitely. And it's spreading awareness of those the issues and problems that we're facing as a society that we may not be 100% aware of. And I think being like even just here, while we're involved in research, we're also part of a society. And I haven't considered perhaps some of the issues that have arisen in dyslexia
so
and
we're
development.
learning from Tom. Yeah,
definitely.
And I think education as well, it doesn't have to be, like you said, higher education or uni or TAFE, you opening up a book and reading. It can be things like listening to a podcast, watching a YouTube video. Like, we're so lucky now to be surrounded by so much technology that education can happen through a lot of other ways than, because some people don't read and they don't want to read.
A lot of people don't read.
Yeah, so you can always learn other ways.
Yeah, that's right, you can.
Information has never been more accessible.
That's
so
it.
It comes down to...
Has its pros and its cons.
That's it. Oh, that's another story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
All right. Next, we'll hear from Joanne, a PhD student in our lab who is working on chest pain and artificial intelligence and how we can use technology to help with our clinical system.
Education is pretty important to me, I should say, and also
I hope so. You're doing a PhD.
yeah, and also to me it's like similar to like self-development, because I think nowadays I couldn't do anything before I learned it. I know how to do it, so I need to learn from it. And I should say I spent a large amount of time in doing like study. Yeah, so it means a lot to me.
Oh, it sounds like, based off what education means to you, you're well suited to the role of software engineer.
Hopefully.
Yeah, always learning, always developing.
Yeah, and actually, I have a question. Like, I was a kid. Like, why do we need to go to school?
I think every kid wonders that.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you ever come up with an answer? Why do we have to go to school?
I think it's like for you to learn knowledge and make friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the reason why you go there. And there are also some funny answers coming to me. It's like it's the government that you don't want the kids to run around everywhere, so they put them together.
You want to control them. Yeah, that's right.
Do you have an answer to that question?
Why do we have to go to school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it actually reminds me, a few weeks ago, I took my niece to her kindergarten orientation, and the teachers were running through what she'll be doing in class in kindergarten. So what they do is they have time in class, they go outside, they play on the obstacle course in the playground, they come back in, they'll have fruit time, and so everyone sits and eat fruits together. They then go back outside for playtime, and then they come in, they have relaxation time, they'll have lunch time. And I was getting so overwhelmed just thinking about the things that these little 3 and 4 year olds are doing in class all day. But it made me wonder, like, they're not really learning traditional sense that you've got to learn and absorb knowledge, do a test, etc., etc. But the teacher was explaining how, it's important for them to recognize their name. So maybe not so much learn how to spell their name, but be able to recognize their name amongst other names. Mm-hmm. They also play outside and obstacle courses. This is all to build muscle, cutting things, how to use those fine motor skills, how to make friends, relaxation time, how to wind down. And she said in the beginning, kids usually fall asleep, but that's not the point anymore. They don't want them to fall asleep. And then towards the year, as they become less tired and they get more used to kindy, a lot of them just, relax, but they're not actually having a nap. So I think you're right. It's not so much learning, but we go to school to build some of these other soft skills as well, especially in the early years of our life. And I think that if we didn't have that,
we wouldn't work together as well. I think looking now, the collaboration, even worldwide, that wouldn't be operating as smoothly as it is today.
You learn a lot when you're young, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of unwritten, just stuff behind the scenes that your brain works on that you don't even realize.
Even now when we're talking about it, it's like you don't even realize how important it is until we dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, but boy, those kids go through a lot. I don't think I'd be able to survive kindy in 2020.
The nap time sounds pretty good. No,
yeah, I think we should bring in relaxation time to our daily PhD schedule. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, definitely.
Preferably right after lunch when you're in that kind of food coma. Next up is Jun, and we had him on a previous episode where he was talking about finishing up his master's project involved in tissue engineering. And if you didn't listen to the show, you might also be interested to hear that Jun has 2 master's degrees and has also recently been accepted to start his PhD next year. Congratulations and well done, Jun. Looking forward to having you on the team.
Well, I personally think, education is like a privilege. Well, first thing is that, we live in such a blessed country, I think. Australia is a very, it's a rich and a beautiful country where, there are, many opportunities, to get educated or, get a job or, live a life, that you really want to live. But sometimes I think we get very used to this and take it for granted.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I think, education is something that is very valuable, which not everyone could actually have access to. So, for example, due to various circumstances. Some countries, like developing countries, like in a place like Africa, some kids would not have the same opportunities as us, or like a Burma, and so on. So yeah, or even even if you have the opportunity, some people sometimes your own head does not follow as what you want to do. So I guess yeah, that's pretty much what education really
Amazing.
makes me.
You heard it here first, folks, from a guy who's about to have 2 master's degrees. Amazing. Last but not least, we have Nikki back on the show. She was one of the first people we interviewed back when we started the podcast in 2020. Since being in Australia and finishing her master's internship, Nikki has returned to the Netherlands to start her new job. She is also thinking about coming back, and you'll hear more from her in a sec.
So, hello everybody. This is Nikki, and I've been on the podcast before, but it's been a while. So, Adila and Ben asked me if I could send them a voice message explaining what education is for me. It's mostly pursuing something I'm passionate about and getting the tools of, using that to pursue my passion. And also, of course, to improve certain skills like writing, reading, thinking about certain topics in different ways, being open to other ways of thinking about it. And I think it's also a lot about sharing information with other people so you can spread it on to the next one. I think in general it's made me in who I am now, like how I think about things and how I look at the world, I guess. A really plus point for me as well is that because of my education, I got to go to Australia before to do my master internship there, and I got to meet a lot of new people. Well, not only in Australia, of course, but during my whole studies. The whole social part of education is also really important, that you share an environment with people that are passionate about the same things and that you can talk to them about your education or something else. Well, because of education, it's also gonna bring me back to Australia again, because my boyfriend is doing a PhD. I will follow him again to Australia, so I'm really happy that I will be meeting up again with Ben and Adila, and maybe I'll be on the podcast again, and then in real life, not through a voice message. So I hope this was a good view from me about education, and I hope you all learn a lot by doing your studies or just by reading or whatever it is. You can educate yourself in different ways, not only by going to university, but just be interested in certain things. Just if you want to know something, just look it up. And that's also part of educating yourself. I think it's always good to be curious and to learn more. And I always say you learn something every day, even though it's just something small, but it's also part of education. So it hasn't necessarily has to be a studies or anything, but that was it. Hope you have a good day, and bye.
Thanks again to all our guests we've had so far on the podcast who has shared their time to be with us on the show. We'd also like to thank you, our listeners, for your ongoing support over the last few months. It's been quite a busy last few months for Ben and I, so we hope that you've enjoyed the episodes so far. Leave us any feedback that you have and follow us on our social media. We hope you have a safe and happy festive time of year, and hopefully we'll be back with a few more new episodes and some more guests next year. Thanks for your support. Bye.
Bye.